Most men find out their marriage is over when the divorce papers show up in the mail. Me? I found out in my own basement. When a furnace repairman standing right there in my house texted me that there was a locked door behind my storage shelves and something was breathing inside. My name is Lewis Jackson, 51 years old. I own a modest 3-bedroom house in Columbus, Ohio. Every Saturday morning, I'm out there coaching little kids soccer, yelling encouragement from the sidelines like I still had everything figured out. Until 11 days ago, I actually believed I was one of the lucky ones. Before I drag you any deeper into this nightmare, do me one quick favor, hit subscribe. A lot of you watch these stories and never bother, but it costs nothing, and it means everything if you want more like this. While you're at it, smash that like button. You're gonna want to stick around for the rest of this one. Trust me. Now, let me tell you about my wife. Her name is Claire Ann Jackson. 15 years married, 18 years together. She loved lighting those lavender candles that turned the whole house into something that smelled like a fancy spa. She binged true crime podcasts every single night. Yeah, looking back, that should have been a red flag the size of Montana. And she took her coffee with exactly 1 sugar and a splash of oat milk every morning, without fail. I knew this woman, or at least, I thought I did. It all kicked off on a Tuesday in February, already the grayest, most soul-crushing month of the year. Claire was down in Atlanta visiting her college roommate Donna. She'd been gone 3 days. I was living my best temporary bachelor life. Cereal straight from the box for dinner, every TV in the house blasting sports, same hoodie on for 48 hours straight. I was thriving, honestly. Then the furnace started making this sound. Not the normal old house groan you get used to. This was low, rhythmic, like metal teeth slowly chewing on something it had no business chewing. The kind of sound that makes the hair on your arms stand up even before your brain catches up. I Googled the first HVAC company that popped up. 40 minutes later, Dale Briggs from Briggs & Sons Heating and Cooling rolled in. Big friendly guy, thick mustache, smelled like coffee and motor oil. "Give me 20 minutes, he said, heading down to the basement. I gave him 20, made myself a ham sandwich, watched half a highlight reel, felt like a king. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Dale, who was literally standing in my basement right then. "Mr. Jackson, there's a locked door behind your storage shelves. Who's inside?" I actually laughed out loud. Typed back fast. "Dale, buddy, we don't have any locked door back there." 3 dots appeared. Then, "Sir, I can hear breathing inside, and there are 4 padlocks on the outside." My sandwich suddenly tasted like cardboard. 4 padlocks. On the outside. Let that sink in for a second. Locks on the outside of a door don't keep people out. They keep whatever's inside from getting out. That wasn't security. That was a cage. I flew down those basement stairs so fast I nearly ate concrete. Dale was standing there, face pale, pointing at our old metal storage shelves, the ones Claire always refused to let me donate, even though I'd asked 3 separate times. They'd been pulled out just a few inches from the wall. And behind them, a door I had never seen in 15 years of living in that house. Plain gray hollow core door, painted the exact same color as the basement wall. If the shelves were pushed flush against it, which they always were, you would never know it existed. 4 heavy-duty padlocks, each on its own hasp. And from behind the door, faint but unmistakable, the slow, rhythmic sound of someone breathing. "Call the police," I told Dale, voice already shaking. "Already dialing," he said. 3 officers showed up in 8 minutes flat. I stood in my own basement feeling like a stranger in someone else's horror movie, while they cut through those locks one by one. The metallic clink of each padlock hitting the concrete floor still echoes in my head. I kept texting Claire. "Hey, call me. Something's going on." No answer. She was probably at dinner with Donna. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. I needed something to hold on to. The door finally swung open. The room was empty. Not just empty, swept clean. Bare concrete floor. 1 single bare bulb hanging from the ceiling, not even turned on. In the corner sat a small Bluetooth speaker, still warm to the touch. And right next to it, a cheap, cracked burner phone balanced on a cardboard box. The breathing? Just a recording. Looping. Remotely triggered. Officer Tate Kid looked like he graduated high school last week, picked up the burner phone with gloved hands. Someone activated this recently, he said, like, within the last hour. So someone was watching, I muttered. They waited until Dale got near those shelves, then hit play. That's when the floor really started tilting under my feet. Because this wasn't random. This was staged. Perfectly timed. Someone knew exactly when a repairman would be in my basement. Someone wanted the police inside that hidden room. Someone wanted me standing there looking guilty as hell in my own house. This wasn't a prank. This was choreography. And the worst part? The person who directed the whole performance had been sleeping in my bed for 15 years. That hidden room and the breathing recording, that was just the opening act. The real performance started when Claire came home from Atlanta 2 days later. She walked through the front door, looking exactly like a worried wife should, concerned eyes, arms already reaching for me, both hands cupping my face like I was the only thing in her world. "Louis, what happened? Are you okay?" "God help me." For about 45 minutes, I believed her. She cried real tears. Or at least they looked real when I took her down to the basement and showed her the empty room, the cut padlock still lying on the concrete like broken teeth. She held my arm tight while I explained the speaker, the burner phone, the police. She said all the right lines. That's terrifying. Who would do something like this? Should we get a lawyer? That last one hit different later. At the time, I thought she was being protective. Turns out she was being precise. The storage unit broke her performance, but only for half a heartbeat. When Detective Roy Callahan came back 4 days later and dropped the bomb about Unit 114 on Mercer Road Women's Clothes, prepaid debit card in my name, and that photograph of a missing woman named Angela Pruitt, I watched Claire's face across the kitchen table. Most people wouldn't have noticed. It lasted maybe half a second. A tiny, involuntary freeze, like a computer screen glitching before it snaps back. Then the tears came flooding again. "Someone is setting Louis up," she said firmly, reaching for my hand. "This is obviously a setup. My husband has never been to that storage unit." Callahan looked at her, then at me, then back at her. "Mrs. Jackson, how do you know it's obvious?" She didn't even blink. "Because I know my husband." I replayed that sentence in my head 400 times over the next 2 days. She didn't say, "He would never do this." She didn't say, "That's impossible." She just said she knew me and kept the spotlight on certainty instead of character. It was a lawyer's answer, wearing a wife's voice. That's when things started getting architectural. I called my old college buddy Gary Howell on day 7. Gary investigates insurance fraud for a living. His whole job is spotting how people build lies that look like truth. I told him everything. He went quiet for a long time on the phone. Then he asked one question that cracked the floor open wider. "Louis, how many joint accounts do you and Claire have?" "3. Checking, savings, household card." "Who manages them?" I opened my mouth, then closed it. Claire had handled them since year 2 of our marriage. I'd once complained that budgeting felt like a chore, and she offered to take it over. I never thought about it again. Bills got paid. Savings grew. Everything looked fine. Gary told me to pull every statement going back at least 5 years. I pulled 7. What I found at 2 a.m., sitting at the kitchen desk, didn't scream. That was the genius of it. No huge withdrawals. No flashy transfers to secret accounts. Just small, patient, almost loving movements, $100 here, routed to some account I'd never seen. A recurring subscription to a business name that meant nothing to me. A cash withdrawal every 3rd month. Never enough to trip any alarm. Always just under the reporting limit. Over 7 years, it added up to $60,000. $60,000. Moved so quietly, I never heard a single sound. I sat there, staring at those numbers, until the coffee went cold, feeling a very specific kind of chill. Not the panic kind, the scale kind. Because this wasn't something Claire decided to do after a fight or a rough patch. The very first weird transaction was dated 14 months after our wedding, back when we were still unpacking boxes in our first apartment, still laughing about how we were going to grow old together. She started building this while I was still kissing her good morning every day. Gary came over the next morning. We spread everything across the dining room table: bank records, storage paperwork, police report, the timeline I'd scribbled on a legal pad at 3 a.m. He studied it all without saying a word for a long time. That silence from Gary is never a good sign. He finally pointed at the storage unit rental. "Walk me through your phone that week. Where was it the night before the agreement was signed?" "On the nightstand. Like always. I charge it there every night." Gary just looked at me. "And where was Claire?" "In the bedroom. We shared a bed for 15 years. I had never once thought of my phone charging on my nightstand as a vulnerability. But she had taken it while I slept. Driven to Mercer Road. Signed the rental agreement in my name. She knew my signature better than I knew the back of my own hand. Paid cash. Set everything up. And slipped back into bed before my alarm even went off." I tried to remember that next morning. Had she seemed tired? Off? Different? I couldn't. Because it was a Tuesday. And on Tuesdays, I left early for a 7 a.m. budget call. Kissed her forehead, grabbed my travel mug, and didn't look back. 18 years of not looking back. Then Gary asked about the furnace call. I already knew what we were going to find. The call to Briggs & Sons had been made from my cell at 8:47 a.m. The exact time I was already at the office, with a timestamp from the parking garage to prove it. Claire had made that call. From my phone, she had engineered the noise, the repairman, the discovery, all of it from Atlanta with one tap on a remote app while I was upstairs eating a sandwich and watching highlights like nothing was wrong. She had stood in that nice Atlanta restaurant with Donna and calmly pressed play on my destruction. Gary's voice dropped low, the tone men use when they wish they didn't have to say what's coming next. "Lewis, this isn't something you throw together in a few months. The money moves go back 7 years. The identity work, your name on accounts you never opened, your print supposedly on a unit you never visited that takes practice. Repetition. She didn't just study you." He paused. "She became fluent in you." I stood up, walked to the kitchen window, and stared out at the backyard I'd mowed 1,000 times. At the garden Claire planted 2 summers ago, the one I helped water every single evening that fall. Because she said the seedlings needed consistency, I had watered her garden while she was quietly digging my grave. At 51 years old, I had one move left, and I hadn't told Gary about it yet, because the only way it would work was if Claire believed completely, convincingly, that her plan had succeeded. She needed to think she had already won, and I needed her comfortable just long enough for me to become someone she could no longer read. There's a particular kind of quiet that settles over a man when he stops being afraid and starts being dangerous. I found that quiet on a Wednesday morning, sitting at my own kitchen table with cold coffee and 7 years of bank statements in front of me. And I made a decision I have not lost one single minute of sleep over since. If you're still here, you already know this story isn't over. Because the woman who spent 18 years learning every detail of my life never once paid attention to what was actually going on inside my head. And that was always going to be her only mistake. I didn't call a lawyer. I didn't confront Claire. I didn't even run back to Detective Callahan with everything Gary and I had found. Because here's the thing about evidence. It only works if the person holding it still looks believable. And right now, in the eyes of Columbus PD, I was a 51-year-old man whose name was already on a storage unit full of a missing woman's clothes. My credibility was in the toilet, and Claire had made sure of that. So I did the one thing she never planned for. I became someone she couldn't read anymore. First move. I called my brother Dennis in Dayton. Dennis Jackson, retired Army, 3 legal guns, speaks in short sentences, and has never panicked about anything in his life. The kind of man you want on your side when the floor drops out. I drove up there on a Thursday morning. Told Claire I needed a few days to clear my head. She stood in the doorway, arranged her face into the perfect picture of a supportive wife and said, "Take all the time you need, baby." I almost smiled. Almost. At Dennis's kitchen table, over black coffee and leftover cornbread, I laid everything out: the basement, the storage unit, the $60,000, the call logs, the photo of Angela Pruitt, tucked inside Claire's copy of In Cold Blood. Dennis listened without a single interruption. For him, that's the same as anyone else screaming. When I finished, he stayed quiet a long moment, then asked one question. You said she talks to someone she trusts. Her friend Renee Gallagher. They've been tight since before I even met Claire. Talk every week, sometimes 2 or 3 hours. She always takes those calls in the sunroom with the door closed. Dennis nodded slowly. How long ago did you put the baby monitor in the sunroom? I stared at him. He stared right back, dead serious. Dennis, I haven't. I know you haven't, he said, but you're about to. Look, I'm not a vengeful man by nature. I coached youth soccer for 11 years. Never thrown a punch outside a gym. I'm the guy at the cookout making sure everyone has a drink, and the vegetarians aren't forgotten. Vengeance was never in my wiring. But patience? Patience I've got in spades. And patience, it turns out, is the only currency that matters in a long game like this. Dennis ordered the monitor online, paid cash at a UPS kiosk, shipped it to a P.O. box, the kind of quiet operational precision that 18 years in the Army burns into a man forever. I drove home Saturday, told Claire I felt better. Let her hug me in the doorway while I counted her heartbeat against my chest, and felt absolutely nothing. That was the strangest part. No rage, no grief, just ice-cold clarity. Sunday afternoon, while Claire was at the grocery store, I installed the monitor. Small wireless thing, tucked behind a decorative plant on the sunroom windowsill. A plant neither of us had moved in 15 years. Took me 4 minutes flat. That evening, I drove back to Dennis's, confirmed the audio feed was crystal clear on his laptop, then came home for dinner like nothing happened. Claire made pasta. Asked if I was starting to feel more like myself. Getting there, I said. She smiled and refilled my water glass. I waited 19 days. 19 days of playing the perfect Lewis Jackson loving husband, cooperative guy, casual person of interest in a missing woman case. 19 days of answering Detective Callahan's questions with a straight face. 19 days of letting Claire hold my hand in front of him while she performed perfect concern so flawlessly that sometimes even I had a split-second doubt, wondering if I'd imagined the whole damn thing. Then, on a Thursday evening in the 3rd week, Renee Gallagher came to visit. I made myself scarce. Told Claire I was heading to Gary's for the night. Kissed her cheek, drove exactly 4 blocks, parked in the dark, and opened the app on my phone. The audio was crystal clear. They spent the first 20 minutes talking normal stuff: Renee's job, a cousin's wedding, some restaurant in Cincinnati worth the drive. I almost convinced myself I was crazy, that I'd planted a listening device in my own house because of paranoia and pain. Then Claire's voice changed. It was subtle, like a musician switching keys without missing a beat. Same voice, same woman, but everything underneath shifted. She got quieter, sharper. The warmth drained out completely, the way water drains from a bathtub. He has no idea, Claire said. Renee was quiet a moment. You're sure? He's still making me coffee every morning. Roy's treating him like a suspect, and Louis is he's just Louis. He can't see past what's right in front of him. He never could. And the woman? Angela? Safe, Claire said calmly. She agreed to disappear for 60 days. She's in Phoenix. I paid her enough that she won't talk. By the time 60 days is up, Louis will be too buried to matter. Another pause. Claire, Renee's voice turned careful. What actually happens to him? He becomes the answer to the question the police are already asking, Claire said. Simple as stating the weather. They have his name, his prints, his financial trail. I just have to let it finish building. Another few weeks, and it won't need me anymore. It'll have its own gravity. And you'll be where? Somewhere warm, Claire answered. Then she laughed. Easy, relaxed, genuinely amused. The kind of laugh you make when everything has gone exactly according to plan. I sat in my parked car 4 blocks from my own house, listening to my wife laugh about the architecture of my destruction, and I felt that dangerous quiet settle over me again. Cold, still, absolute. I didn't call Dennis. I didn't call Gary. I didn't call Detective Callahan. Not yet, because now I knew exactly how deep this went. and I was done reacting. 2 days after Renee left, I hired a private investigator named Carl Upton, retired Columbus PD, recommended by Gary. The man's entire personality is a filing cabinet. I gave him one instruction: find Angela Pruitt. It took him 6 days. She was exactly where Claire said, mid-range hotel on Camelback Road in Phoenix, paying cash, registered under a slightly different name. Carl got photos, got her on record, got a notarized statement from a woman who, it turned out, hadn't fully understood what she'd signed up for, and was a lot less comfortable once a retired detective sat across from her explaining the word accessory. Angela wasn't a criminal mastermind. She was just a woman who needed money and made a catastrophic mistake. She gave us everything: how Claire found her, how much she was paid, how she was coached to stay gone for 60 days. She signed the statement with shaking hands and cried for 10 straight minutes. Carl sat with her until she stopped. Decent guy, that filing cabinet. Now I had two things Claire had no idea existed: the recorded conversation from the sunroom, and a signed statement from the missing woman who wasn't missing at all. Here's what I did not do. I did not walk into the police station and hand everything over, because evidence from a suspect, even exonerating evidence, gets sucked into a slow, public legal machine. Claire would lawyer up, go silent, and spend the next 18 months dismantling my life from the other side. She was very good at dismantling things. I knew that now. So instead, on a Friday evening, while Claire was in the sunroom reading In Cold Blood, the audacity of this woman still blows my mind. I sat at the kitchen table and sent 2 things from an email address she had never seen to a phone number she didn't recognize, an audio file, and a clear photo of Angela Pruitt, alive and well in Phoenix, holding that day's newspaper. No message, no name, no explanation. I closed the laptop, washed my coffee mug, and went to bed like any other night. 40 minutes later, she came downstairs. I watched through barely open eyes as she stood in the bedroom doorway, phone in hand, completely still. In 15 years of marriage, I had never once seen Claire Ann Jackson stand completely still. She was always moving, always arranging, always managing. Now she just stood there like a woman who had finally heard a sound she couldn't locate. Good. The next morning, I drove to Detective Callahan's office and placed Carl Upton's full report on his desk statement, photos, financial records, call logs, everything organized in a navy blue folder with a metal clasp. Because I'm still a thorough man, Callahan read for 11 minutes without looking up. "Mr. Jackson," he finally said. "Roy," I answered. "I think we both know I didn't rent that storage unit." He looked at me a long moment, then picked up his phone. Claire was arrested on a Tuesday. 14 charges: conspiracy, fraud, obstruction. They walked her out of our house in handcuffs at 9 a.m. on a morning so cold you could see your breath. I watched from the doorway. She looked back at me once, just once, as they guided her toward the patrol car. And for the first time in 18 years, I couldn't read her face, couldn't find the calculation behind the eyes. Couldn't locate the woman who had studied me like a master forger studies a signature. She just looked at me. I nodded. Because here's what Claire never understood about me, the one fundamental miscalculation at the center of her perfect plan. She spent 15 years watching everything I did. Where I went, how I signed my name, how I slept. She never once paid attention to what I was actually thinking. At 51 years old, I'm not a dramatic man. I don't make speeches. I don't slam doors. I don't need the last word. I just need the last move. She spent 15 years building a prison for me. I built hers in 19 days. Somewhere out there right now, Claire Ann Jackson is looking over her shoulder for a ghost she created herself, a man she thought she knew completely. She knew my signature. She never knew my spine. And that was always going to be her only mistake.